conversation, I've got Samriddhi and Alexia with me. They both are from alternate healing world. We just had a wonderful workshop with both of them. Holistic healers. And so I thought we'll utilize their time here and have some candid conversation.
Yeah.
So let's start. So Samriddhi, I read your posts on Instagram, and it seems 5 years back you quit your corporate job and moved to remote beach in Goa, and you now live with 2 dogs and a cat.
Yeah.
So what prompted you to take a decision like that, leave a job and
I mean, honestly, I was just not in a great place. I was so I had my own startup, but it came with a lot of stress. I was in a relationship which was also came with a lot of its own stress. So, and I think I was just in that, which I think a lot of people can relate to, this autopilot mode where you're going, but every day your battery is getting depleted a little bit, and you're not realizing. Until for me, because of external circumstances, etc., sort of everything fell apart in one go. My life fell apart. So so the only options I had was either I stay here and I try to make sense of what's happened, or I start afresh. And so now when I look back, I feel like that was really a big blessing that happened to me. So when people say all of these things like jo hota hai achhe ke liye hota hai, and like there's a lesson in everything that happens to you, and it used to sound really cliched, but now when I look back on my life, I feel that it's so true. Because when everything fell apart, and I didn't even know who I was anymore, in a sense, everything that I'd grown up believing, conditioned to believe, it all sort of fell away. So then I had the opportunity to ask myself, okay, who am I? And then build from there. And we don't really get that opportunity at 27, 28, how old I was.
So would this be advice you would give to anyone who's in a similar situation? And move to Goa. So what would be your advice to someone who's going through a similar phase?
I don't know about leave everything and move to Goa. I don't know if I'm qualified to give that extreme an advice to everyone. But I would say, take time.
So take a break,
or take the time and the space to figure yourself out and what you want. And I know it's very, very hard when we are on this treadmill of do next, more. But making the space for figuring yourself out, healing, as we like to call it. For me, it's the biggest thing that there is, and we forget that sometimes.
So Alexia, you have had a similar situation. You moved in from France and you started traveling.
Yeah.
And when was that? How many years back?
I was 17.
Oh, you were 17. So,
this my full life breakdown. My parents divorced, and the divorce went very bad, and my mom became alcoholic and very depressed. So it has been very hard. I have actually been on the street. I had no roof, and then from there, I became very toxic relationship. I became into addiction, and my life was just like going into chaos, and somehow I left to Australia, and then a very loved one, deep person, killed themselves, and from there it was like real darkness.
So what's the first step? You moved the city?
I moved.
So you moved the physical location.
I moved the physical location.
So for both of you, when that phase hit, you took a pause.
Yeah.
And you moved the location. So what's the next step? How did the next step happen?
Yeah, after this I could not find any light, It was like I had no identity. Everything I wanted in my life changed. I did not know who I was, exactly the same, I did not have any repair in my world. So I heard about meditation, and I decided to go into a Vipassana meditation in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually has been great for me. I came out with a little bit of sun and I was smiling again, but very quickly, I went back into my old habit as I went back to Australia. And then I decided, okay, it's a very dark thought, so I decided to see a psychologist. And luckily enough, she was really good and she orientated me. She said, no, I can help you, but I think you should go into holistic practices. And I met very big mentors of mine in Australia, and they are doing kinesiology and family constellation. And
So how does meditation helps? So because a lot of youngsters that I meet ask me this question that why should I just sit and meditate? It's just such a waste of time. My own kids. So how has meditation helped in your journey or your quest for self?
I think for me, it has not been releasing trauma, but it has definitely helped me to be more present and, allowing thoughts to come into my head, but also being aware that the thought doesn't define who I am as a person. And once you can have this distance, you can be more present, more clear into what you want and go forward into your life.
So meditation has created that distance, that awareness within you to see yourself better.
Definitely.
Oh, okay. So let's say I see a lot of trauma in me. So how does one move towards healing it? How does one remove these traumas, these painful memories?
Yeah, you have to go through the process, and there is so many different modalities. As I said, it can be transgenerational trauma, which means like things that happened to your parents and your grandparents and it has been given to you genetically. It can be through what we are doing, breath work, because there's a lot of transformation in a cellular level. So you will obviously have a different perception of life and act differently. So your outcome will be
So the breath work that you're doing and the breath work that we do in yoga, which we call pranayam. So do you see similarities?
Yeah, for sure. So, I would say the underlying principle of it is the same. So even because I teach yoga as well, so when you read the Yoga Sutras, you read yoga texts, the purpose of pranayam is also we are too caught up in our patterns, right? So they can be mental patterns, they can be physical patterns, they can be our emotions, our stories, and we always find ourselves reacting to similar situations in similar ways, and sometimes that can become very frustrating. And what a pranayam practice works on, like the basic principle, is that you're using your breath to transform certain things that are happening, in your physical body, in your energetic body, and breathwork works on the same principle. It's just a different approach to it. It's a different
It's
technique.
just more focused session.
It's more focused. It's a bit faster and deeper, whereas pranayam is much more grounding, much more daily practice. So
Okay, so you have taught yoga, and I assume practice yoga as well. So would you recommend yoga to today's generation? How should they look at yoga? Should they look at yoga as a fitness regime, as a kind of a wellness regime, spiritual regime, or cleansing regime? So how would you want to communicate?
I guess it's a little bit of all of this,
Everything,
and so why not? You can have all in once.
All in
It's a
one
good
package.
thing.
So yoga is all in one package.
it is, for sure.
Yeah.
But how would a Gen Z, a Instagram generation, come to yoga, or what would they like in yoga? What can they get out of yoga, which they're not getting out of gym, or they're not getting out of their, let's say, other boxing, kickboxing? There's so many different exercise regimes that have come up.
Yeah.
So how should one convince themselves for yoga?
So for me, I think in the modern world, what has happened with modern medicine, with the way we look at things very much in isolation. So you have, say, a physical ailment, it has a physical treatment. You have a mental ailment, it has a mental treatment. And it's the same for fitness. Fitness is physical, you do something else for your mind. But in the yogic approach, it's very, very integrated. So there are very strong belief systems that the way you move your body will change the way you think, the way you change your breath will change your mind, will change your emotions. So it's really a very, very integrated practice, which I think is not true for some other practices also, right? And so if someone is looking for a holistic approach that moves through the body, through the mind, through the energy, and generally what we call living life more in the flow state, not being controlled by our thoughts, but just letting them flow through us and being in the moment and having more freedom and more joy in life. I think yoga is a
So a
good
lot
tool.
of us these days are suffering from one, digital addiction. We're constantly on our third wheel, as you said, phones.
Yeah.
And then the other big problem is this whole feeling of disconnectedness. Though we are connected through the phone and everything, but still we feel even more disconnected. So as a result, we are seeing a lot of
Funny you
anxiety,
say this.
depression, so we are seeing a lot of such things. So do you think yoga helps in some of these areas?
Saying this, one of my mentors and one time, phone are our new mothers.
Phone?
Phone are our new mothers.
Phone are our new mothers. Right.
Yeah, because we feel so disconnected, it's like an addiction, and because of the lack of connection, we're always on the phone, right? But when you are in yoga or when you experience workshop, I think there is a real connection that is happening between people. It's not superficial, like when you meet at the gym, when you just hi, how are you? You actually connect in a much deeper level. You feel the person, and you don't really need to talk for this. You just feel it.
So the human connection is missing in people's life. The real.
Maybe not in everybody, for sure, but I think less and less. Yeah, in big cities, you work, you take the metro, you're on your phone, and there's less and less human contact.
Mm-hmm. So that is something that can be taken care by these kind of workshops that you guys are doing in different cities, breathwork and letting people connect back to themselves by deconditioning their minds.
Yeah.
So is it like a alternate medicine also for people who are on a depression medication, or people who are suffering anxiety or have serious mental illness? So how does it help them?
Yeah, I meet a lot of people in depression or with anxiety. It can be very hard for them to go outside and just go and meet people just like that. It's not happening for them. So it also increases their anxiety or depression by staying at home or stepping back. And so during those workshops or even holistic practices, we really create this safe space for people to be able to come and to connect and to feel secure to do so.
Yeah, and I think also I look at all of these practices as a toolkit, and everybody can build their own toolkit and customize it according to their needs. So there is a daily yoga practice. For some people it's more physical, for some people it's more with the breath. There is the work that we do, which is like these intense workshops where you can have big breakthroughs. And I think if you're on that path of just healing and spiritual, it just sounds very big. I think it's just the path to be a better version of you, I guess. You can pick and choose your own toolkit and then stick to it, and you look back and see.
So there's a big stigma around mental health. A lot of people do not want to come out, or the families are not aware that the member of the family is suffering from something. So how can we create more awareness about it? So what are the typical symptoms one should look at which need attention in a family?
You can say.
So when it comes to families or general society as well, I'm not a mental health expert, so I don't want to talk about symptoms, but I think over generations, or maybe it's just how we've always been, we have this tendency of sort of brushing the hard stuff under the carpet, and maybe I think as a human civilization, it comes because we all have this deep fear of death, which is like the ultimate dark thing, right? And from there is this tendency of you want to brush everything that's dark under the carpet. You want to focus on the positive, you want to focus on the success, you want to focus on but what happens when we do that as a collective is that we isolate ourselves, right? Because when you can't talk about the stuff that's hard, the stuff that's dark, when you can't share your own pain in a safe way, then that becomes isolating, and that makes things so much worse. So I think maybe as families, as societies, we need to work on this together in terms of just being okay with being more vulnerable, because that vulnerability and that openness, I think it holds the key to everything else. Because you can focus on the joy and you can focus on the success, but if you're bypassing the darkness, it's not, that light is not real. So you have to get through the dark and be with each other through the dark to really find the light. That's what I think.
And one of the things, Samriddhi, that I have been noticing ever since I've been growing is that even in schools and the society in general, there's this whole concept which is based on the physical presence of a person, right? So body is what we are for everyone. Okay, and there's body shaming, there is body appreciation. Right, so there are both ends of the spectrum. One whose body is appreciated and who's praised because of his looks and the way, how cool and how much muscular someone is, and other one who is being shamed. So how does one come out free of this whole bondage of how I look? I know you've managed it quite well. So any tips for people?
Go shave your hair, everyone.
Is that the reason why the monks used to shave their heads?
Yeah, I think it is non-attachment.
Yeah, and I think it's about how you are feeling inside of yourself. It's really internal, because you can look anywhere and some people feel very good in their body, and some people are very pretty and they feel very ugly, I don't think it's about the way you look, it's about how you feel inside.
But there is also inherent craving in all of us to be appreciated, to be praised.
Yeah.
So is that like a natural thing or is that a conditioning? If I don't tell my wife that she's looking pretty, it's
I don't
an
think,
issue.
I think we don't need it. Like the ideas that we need compliment or we need to be appreciated is not real. I think though the belief that we want to be appreciated is real. So it's about your thought, it's about your belief, but it's not reality. Your needs are water, food, oxygen. That's real needs. All the rest is, a condition.
Instagram? There's a whole
Instagram is part of
Instagram
it. Yeah.
There is a whole generation of people now who's living on Instagram. They miss the
Sam?
Guilty.
So how does one get out of this trap? I know you've said that it's not important, but let's say it has become important for me and I'm in that trap where I seek followers, I seek fan following, I seek compliments on a daily basis, and without that I feel depressed. So how do I get out of it?
I can answer this question because I create a lot of content on Instagram, so I'll just answer it from like a very narrow social media point of view. So before I started creating content, I had no posts. I used to really limit, the time I spent on the screen, etc. And I 1000% agree that it can have very, very debilitating effects on your mental health and all of that. But over time, as I started creating more content and as I really saw, these cycles of suddenly your growth booms, you have all of these likes, and then you have a post that really fails, or, you're losing followers or you're stagnant. But for me now, this journey has actually become a vehicle for spiritual growth. For me, it's to observe how I am reacting, to all of this. So in a way, it's like a mirror for where I need to grow, the calmness that I need to bring into myself, the stability that I need to bring into myself through the highs and lows. So I think life's never going to be, it's hard to disconnect the reality of life, we can make it a practice in terms of how we find ourselves reacting to that reality.
So you talked about spiritual life, and for a lot of people I meet, they have 2-3 kind of life. There's a spiritual life, they live in Rishikesh, and then they come to their worldly life, which is their office. Then there's the family life, which is their home. So isn't life one? Or do we have to compartmentalize it that this is my spiritual life? This is my, what according to you?
I mean, I think spirituality is in every corner of your life. It's not like you can be spiritual in one practice and then your life is fully different. I think once you start being anchored within yourself and start having daily practices, you implement those practices into your relationship, into your work. So your life is growing into this direction of a more spiritual life, healthy life.
So what's the ultimate objective of all these practices? Where does it all lead us to?
I think everybody is very unique. For me, I think it was about being the better version of myself and building a better connection with people, building a better relationship with my lover, having a better communication with my parents. So yeah, that's
so it's
for me.
Basically about connecting with our real self, or the one that Creator intended us to be.
Yeah,
right?
And being less in resistance and conflict towards
More
life.
to flow with life.
Just like welcoming what has to come, because then the suffering is less.
So most of us want to secure ourselves, so to come out of that space of security in a vulnerable and to flow with life. So that's all it helps us.
Yeah, I think it's that cliche thing that they say, right? That pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So, that's what it's about.
So is pain the only way to grow in life?
It's a part of life.
It's a part. Yeah.
It's a part of life.
Okay. So, and does it stop at a time, or it will keep? The magnitude
I think
will keep increasing.
You keep going your whole life, and then next life you keep growing.
So it's basically better to just enjoy the journey, whether it's pain or whether it's happiness, whatever is coming your way, just embrace it.
Yeah, just embrace it.
So is that the ultimate objective, purpose of life, to enjoy the journey and there's no destination at all?
The destination doesn't really matter. There is definitely one. We're all going to the same destination, right? But it's how you're going to go to this destination, definitely.
Okay, so it's lovely to have this conversation with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Viraj.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it was really lovely. Thank you.
Okay.